What's poppin', y'all? The Drake haters and the Kendrick haters are back at each other's throats, and the gift that keeps on giving is this disgusting lawsuit from Drake, where he's basically suing Kendrick Lamar, but he's suing UMG and his stands are trying to make it seem like, oh, he's doing this great thing, taking on the music industry. But as a result of it, we've gotten a lot of information on people's contracts. Namely, we've got one piece of information on Kendrick Lamar's contract, which is this specific section where it says on information and belief from 2012 through 2023, Kendrick Lamar was signed to an exclusive production company agreement with Top Dog Entertainment, which in turn furnished his exclusive recording services to the Aftermath record imprint, a joint venture of Interscope. So kind of what this means is a lot of people, and I believe Say Cheese has done this well. Done this as well. Before an artist signs to a major, they'll sign them to like a production deal. And this is essentially like, a bunch of albums. They may give them in advance, they may not. And what they will do after that is once they help blow the artist up, and this is usually at the ground level. So this is what Top Dog Entertainment did. They're at the ground level. They're like, we're putting you with J-Rock. We're going to facilitate the moves needed to take you to the next level. And then an Aftermath comes in who's jointly with Interscope, which is a major. And they're like, okay, we want to buy this. Either they're going to buy the deal out and they're like, okay, well, we already have them on a production deal, so you got to pay us this much to have this artist. Or if I recall correctly, it's been a little while since I've dealt with something like this. They just do a joint deal. So they're like, okay, we share in the percentage of what we make off of this artist, and he's still signed to both of us. So we're not handing him off to you. I believe with Say Cheese, he would just hand people off, like, okay, I've got him on a production deal. Here, you take it over. You take the artist. You handle all the other stuff. But as we saw with Top Dog, they clearly still wanted to be involved, and they did a lot of the heavy lifting with Kendrick Lamar's career. So it goes on to say the sound recording copyrights to Kendrick Lamar's first 5 studio albums are owned and controlled by Interscope. In 2023, having fulfilled his recording obligations to TDE and Aftermath, Kendrick signed a new short-term exclusive recording and licensing deal, which is different, with UMG through Interscope, and an exclusive publishing administration agreement with UMG through UMPG. Through these contracts, UMG exclusively some other stuff. And then Flacco was the one who posted this, and he said, they got Kendrick Lamar in one of the nastiest 360 deals I've ever seen. My God, they own every album bro has ever dropped. Free Kenny, dog. This ain't right. Now, this is excellent bait. Really good bait. You can see it's got 500,000 views. So he's probably laughing, rubbing his hands while he's reading the comments of all these guys going back and forth. But for those that may think that this is crazy, no, this is standard. Every artist with no leverage, with nothing going on, if they get signed to a 5-album deal, the people that signed them to that deal own all the masters. That's just how it is. And it's not, and this doesn't mean it's a 360 deal, by the way. This just means that they own the masters to the first 5 albums. So we don't know if it's a 360 deal. And this individual replies later and he says he doesn't own the first 5 albums, but that isn't a 360. And the publishing is an admin deal, not a co-pub. Now, the publishing thing, I don't really know. I don't know what's an admin deal in a publishing agreement or a co-pub. I do not know, so I'm not going to speak on that. But with the licensing deal, it's most likely just distribution that he signed with UMPG, or UMG, not UMPG. That's the publishing side. So he's able to distribute his music through them. However, he still owns the masters and the rights to music after. So he owns GNX, which is going to be one of his biggest albums. So you can't say like, oh yeah, 360 from Hell, or like, oh, they own those 5 albums. Yeah, those 5 albums are great, and the better that Kendrick does and the more that he continues to do in his career, those 5 albums are worth more and will be streamed and they will generate a ton of income. But GNX is a huge album and he owns that album. And I think it's the first album that he dropped from being free, which we got to have a lot of respect for. And then he describes and he says 360 is a type of agreement where the label takes a percentage of an artist's income from various non-recorded music sources, such as touring, merch, brand or endorsement deals. I think even if they get acting deals, sync, publishing. These deals still exist but are less common than 20 years ago. I do think they were even common in the 2020, 2021. I saw a lot of these deals. They were quite common. But as of now, yeah, it does seem like a lot of these are just distribution deals. And it also depends on how high the advance was. So they used to give gigantic advances, which is why they would put these people on a 360 deal. But now the advances have dropped so much. So they're like, oh, we don't need to like get a 360 off of this person because the advance is so low. We're not taking as much of a risk as we were taking when we were handing 360s out to everybody. So there is that. And then the other side of this argument, which is quite sickening, is they talk about, yo, they own Drake's masters in that $400 million deal. Yeah, duh. Like, what? Did you think? And this is the problem. And let's assume that they are generous enough to even give Drake any credit. They would only give Drake credit if he got $400 million and he owned the masters fully to the music that he got the $400 million for. So they're basically saying, listen, the only way we're going to give you credit and respect, if they were going to at all, which I don't believe that they were going to, is if the record label said, you know what? We're going to give you an egregious amount that we've never given anybody else in the history of time. And it's not for your catalog. It's just for the music that you're going to give us in the future, which is a little bit of a risk because we don't know if your future music's going to do as good as your past music has done. But we're going to give you $400 million and we're not going to own it either. So we're basically just handing you $400 million and maybe we'll take a baby percentage. And there's a high likelihood we'll never recoup with this type of a deal, but we're just going to do that. That is what these people expect. Yeah, dog, if you're getting $400 million, you're signing over the rights to your music. Is that hard to believe? Like, what the hell? You're getting an outrage. And the fact that you're getting $400 million at all is such an outrageously high number. Like, yo, $400 million for a deal? And you're going to talk about, like, yo, this guy owns his masters? Yeah, you also know he doesn't own his masters. You know who owns his masters? Every artist that's broke making less than $400 a month off of streaming. So don't come out here talking about... And this is why I think these people are so uncharitable and they're so unfair that trying to have an argument with them, you're just going to go nowhere because they are unreasonable. You cannot reason with an unreasonable person. This person believes, and they will use whatever information they can to make Drake look like he took an L. And it's not even an L in the beef. It's an L in everything. And the same thing with Kendrick Lamar. Like, they're saying, like, yo, Kendrick Lamar's first deal was a 5-album, potentially 360. We don't know if it's a 360, but a 5-album deal where he got signed to a major, Interscope, and he got an advance. We don't know what the advance was, and they own his masters. Okay, so Kendrick Lamar got signed to a deal that every single other rapper gets signed to. What artist's first deal without a hit, keep in mind, when Kendrick Lamar got signed, he did not have a smash hit. What artist without a smash hit, and even those with a hit, get signed and they own their masters, especially at the time that Kendrick Lamar got signed? The answer is absolutely none of them. Soulja Boy went into the game, and he had a smash hit already, and that was moving everywhere, and when he signed his deal, he got signed to the same deal. I think it was like 5-album. Might have been a 360 deal, I'm not sure, but it was a 5-album deal where he didn't own the masters. He does not own the masters to crank that, and that's just the nature of the game. And then you build yourself up and you get to a point where, okay, either we renegotiate this deal or I go on my way and get a better deal where maybe I get a bunch more money up front and they own the masters to my next couple albums, or I do a distribution deal and I get to own the masters of the albums that I make after this, or perhaps I just go independent completely and run my own thing. I think a good example of somebody that went independent completely was Big Crit. And Big Crit is definitely not as talked about as he was around like 2015, 2016. I don't know if he's dropping worse music. I don't think that's the case. That's somebody that's really dialed into his craft, but that's somebody that went the hardest route, which is just independent, running your own operation, doing everything yourself, versus someone that took a distribution angle. Like, for example, I think Suicide Boys, they were independent for quite a while completely, and then they took a distribution deal with UMG. And I don't know if they sold their catalog or not, but they took a distribution deal. I know they got offered a disgusting amount for their catalog, but they took a distribution deal, so they were still able to get the benefits of being on a major, but they had built up completely on their own. And they'd never had a smash hit song. Like, sure, they've had songs that have accumulated hundreds of millions of streams, but when it comes to a hit song that everybody's heard that's on the Billboard, they never had that. But they built up a fan base and a touring base and a listener base over years of being independent by themselves. So by the time they got to a label, they were already like, okay, these people are coming here. We have a predictable means of getting our money back or being profitable in this deal with these people. So I just think it's whack the way that people are coming at both Kendrick and Drake for their deals. Frankly, Kendrick got a deal that everyone else was getting, and then he left, and he's doing outstanding now. Like, if GNX was a flop, then you could say that. But he owns an album that's one of the most successful of the past year or two. That is a huge W for Kendrick Lamar. And then Drake got $400 million for a couple of albums, and then now he's getting ready to re-up. So he got $400 million for how many years? How many years has that deal been in place? That's what you should be counting. And they're like, yo, that's a huge W, because now he can either choose to be independent or sign a distribution deal or get this huge cash money up front for another big deal like that. And that's what they're saying he's suing about, because he believes that they're hurting his negotiating power, because maybe, I think he was talking to Sony or something like that. But regardless, both of these guys are winning, and they both hold a W in this scenario. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed, and I'm going to see y'all in the next one.